Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session we are going to see very important current affairs that appear in our today's Hindi newspaper. So before getting started, I want to give a just overview regarding the topics of the day. So first topic it is about coxcomb flower. Harvesting of this coxcomb flower is happening in this Jammu and Kashmir. So we have to see what is this flower is about, in which culinary dishes, or what is the importance of this flower, and it is very important from your environment and ecology case. And second topic it is about left wing extremism. So actually there is one article in our today's newspaper. It is talking about the leaders of this Naxalism were dead. So here you have to say about this concept of Maoism or left wing extremism, like what is that, what are the reasons behind it, so why there is declining of Naxalism in India, and what are the steps taken by the government so far. So all those things that you have to see, and it is important from your internal security point of view. And next topic it is about 3 arrested under Operation Chakra 5. So as you all know that there is increasing of cyber crimes in India. To contain that cyber crime, CBI came up with this operation called as Operation Chakra 5. And in this operation, 3 people were arrested. So you have to see about details regarding this Operation Chakra. And it is very important from your prelims point of view. And next topic it is about our defense minister made a statement, and he said that multilateralism upholding global order, and we have to reform this multilateralism. Here you have to know what is the meaning of multilateralism, and you have to see why our defense minister gave this kind of statement, and this is important from your international relations. And next topic it is about Australia-India Clean Energy Partnership. You have to see what is this partnership is about, and what are the features of this partnership between India and Australia, and what are the impacts of this partnership. And next topic is about microplastic pollution. So you know, like what are the microplastics, right? And you have to know about impacts of microplastic. And recently in our classes we discussed that even in human blood also there is evidence of microplastic. Not only in human blood, even now recently one study says that this microplastic is also threatening Goa's estuarine fisheries. Okay, so this is very important from your SNT point of view and as well as environment and ecology point of view. So these are the topics of the day, guys. Okay, now let us see the first article, and you can see the image. So normally in your homes, in your garden also you can see this kind of flower. Yes or no? So normally in Telugu we'll call as Sita Jada Puvu, right? So this is commonly seen flower, but actually this flower plays a very important role in Kashmiri culture. So we have to see what is this important role, or what is significance of this flower in this Kashmir culture. Okay, so this flower name is coxcomb flower. It is like comb of a cock. Okay, coxcomb flower. It grows vibrant in this Kashmiri gardens, especially during the summer season they'll grow, and this displays like crimson petals. So this flower is having this crimson red color petals. It will be like rooster's comb. So once harvested, these petals will be sun dried by the women of this Kashmir people, and they will make it into powder, and that powder they will use in their dishes as a coloring agent, guys. Okay, so unlike synthetic, normally if you see food colors, we can use red color, yellow color, green color, orange color, different wide varieties of food colors are available in the market, but they are made up of chemicals. So rather than that, we can use natural food coloring agents like this coxcomb flower powder, and we can also use carrot, you can also use palak, we can also use this beetroot. So these are the natural food colors that we can use. Okay, so unlike red color synthetic color, Kashmiri marvel, this flower name is also called as marvel. So this marvel is 100% natural, plant based and chemical free. And especially this Kashmiri marvel is so special because 100% natural food coloring agent. Next one is it is chemical free alternative, no synthetic dyes or additional additives that are required, and they are hand picked and dried in sun by this Kashmiri people. So it will preserve the natural pigments in them, and as well as it is traditional ingredient in certain kinds of culinary dishes like wazwan, and even it is very important for their culture also, because from centuries onwards they are using this as a natural coloring agents for their culinary dishes in this Kashmir. Okay, yeah, now let us see the next article. See the title, guys. 61 Maoists, including top leaders, laid down arms in Maharashtra. So actually what is this article saying about? So Maoists, they laid down arms and they surrendered to the government, especially in which state? In Maharashtra. So here what exactly you have to see. So in your syllabus, in your GS paper 3 under internal security, so you have this topic of Naxalism. So Naxalism is also called as Maoism or left-wing extremism. There are three names, three synonyms. Okay. So here you have to see what is this Naxalism, what is this Naxalism or Maoism. Next you have to see what are the reasons why there is spread of the Naxalism in India, and even you have to see history, when this Naxalism started in India, history of Naxalism, and next you have to see what is the impact of this Naxalism, and next you have to see areas which are affected by this Naxalism in India. It is commonly called as Red Corridor, and next you have to see what are the measures taken by the government so far. And recently our Union Home Minister, he also made a statement that we are going to eliminate this Naxalism by 2026. So here from that statement onwards, what are the extra additional steps government is taking? You have to see that. And you have to also think that whether can we achieve this target of elimination of Naxalism by 2026 or not. So you have to get your own perspective, guys. Okay, now let us see this in detail. So left-wing extremism or Naxalism is one of the India's most internal security challenge. It is rooted in socio-economic inequalities. Actually, it is mainly guided by Maoism ideology. And actually, what is this ideology of Maoism? They want to overthrow the government by violent means. Okay, so actually, if you see the history of this movement, it is mainly called as Naxalbari movement. Why this name Naxalism came up is like this movement started in this Naxalbari region of West Bengal. And in 1961, this movement started in this West Bengal region, and from there it had been spread to different states. Like for example, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, Maharashtra, some parts of AP, Telangana as well. And all these areas together called as Red Corridor. So if you have seen like old movies, there will be lots of movies which shows about this Naxalism ideology, Maoism ideology. Which color dress they'll wear? Black color with red towels. So from that the name came Red Corridor. Okay. So what are the key reasons behind this Naxalism? Especially recent trends are saying that there is declining of Naxalism in our country. That means government might have took certain steps to decline this, right? So here you have to see what are the steps taken by the government so far that led to declining of Naxalism. So first one is government targeted areas which are affected by this Naxalism, and they came up with this developmental activities in this region. So actually the important reason for this rise of Naxalism is underdevelopment. So government came up with the targeted development and security operations. And next one here is actually the one important problem which is faced by this Maoism or Naxalism in today's times is there is no proper leader. Okay, if there is no leader, what happens? The people who are following will be getting weakened. So do you know, normally if you see any warlike conditions, wars between two groups, then what happen? They will target the leader, they will target the king. Even if you see this Bahubali movie, Bahubali 1, so they targeted this person who is the leader, who is the king, right? If once king dies means the people who are following will be getting weakened. They'll be going backward. So the same thing which happened in this Maoism, that is now our government is targeting the leaders of this Maoism. Whenever we are killing or whenever we are arresting those leaders, then what happens? There will be a movement without a leader. So without a leader, well, will it be success? No. So they are targeting this leaders, and that led to the leadership crisis in this Maoism now. And next one is internal rift and as well as political isolation is happening. So in that group itself, in that Maoism itself, or in that Naxalist itself, there is dividing because of differences in ideology of the people. And next one is even they are not getting proper support from this local people or this community. So because of that also they are becoming weak. So these are the important reasons which are leading to the declining of Naxalism in our country in this 2025 days. And what are the challenges that we are facing to combat this Naxalism? If you want to do attacks or if you want to do operations, we need proper intelligence or proper information sharing. So there is no proper information sharing. That is a one important problem that we are facing now. And even there is no proper coordination between the local communities and as well as certain stakeholders who are involved in this region. And second important point is they mainly follow this guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare is nothing but in thick forest or in these hilly regions, they will go and they will hide in one area. Suddenly they will come and they will attack. So this kind of warfare is guerrilla warfare. And this Maoists or Naxalists, they are excelled in this guerrilla warfare. So actually whatever our forces are there, they are not that much good at this guerrilla warfare. So because of this, it is also one important challenge to combat this Naxalism in India. And this one here is one important main reason is not only development, even because of poverty, illiteracy also, local people, they are supporting this Maoist. So even in some tribal areas, in remote areas, still poverty is there, still illiteracy is there. So because of all this, what is happening, local people, certain groups of local people, they are supporting this Naxalism. And this one is even we have legal and human rights concerns as well, and even our government is not having proper funds or resources to conduct operations. So these are the challenges that we have related to this Naxalism. And if you see, so far what are the measures taken by the government? First one is government came up with security operations. So as you all know that in this red corridor areas, state governments came up with a separate wing for fighting against this Maoism. For example, in AP we have greyhounds, and in Chhattisgarh we have battalion. In AP we have greyhounds, and also we have Bastriya battalion in Chhattisgarh, and we have Cobra commandos. By using that kind of special forces against this Maoism or Naxalism, our government is doing certain operations. Operation Greenhorn, Operations Steeple Chase, so like that, lots of operations. Recently, our government came up with this Operation Samadhan also. So on one side, Operation Sindoor is going on, which is against Pakistan, and on another side, Operation Samadhan, which is going in our country to fight against this Maoism. Both are going simultaneously. So in that way, government will come up with different operations to fight against this Maoism. And not only that, government came up with unified command in 2010, and it mainly created interstate coordination. So actually this Maoism is not present only in AP or only in Maharashtra or only in Jharkhand like that. In different states it spread. So that there is a need of proper information sharing between these two states. So for that they came up with this unified command in 2010 for proper information sharing between the states. And government came up with the skill development programs also, that is Roshni scheme, and especially in this left-wing affected districts they implemented this Roshni scheme that led to increased employability options or opportunities in this region. So whenever people are getting employment, will they involve in this kind of activities? No. And next one is government also came up with development measures, like government came up with this Forest Rights Act, government came up with this civic action program, so that it is trying to build trust between the people and government. And this one is very important, government came up with this Samadhan strategy. S for smart leadership, A for aggressive strategy, M for motivation, A for actionable intelligence, and D for dashboard based performance, H for harnessing technology, and A for action plan for theatres, and N for no financial access for insurances. So here this strategy worked well to eliminate or to decrease or to decline this Naxalism in our country. Samadhan, very important strategy. And also government came up with this aspirational district program, especially government selected like many districts from this left-wing affected areas, and government focused on improved development in these areas. And not only that, even government came up with this robust media plan so that to increase awareness about what government policies what government strategies, everything, so that people will be not supporting this Naxalist. And next one is government also used this GIS mapping technology, and it mapped the areas which are affected by this Naxalism, and the government came up with this financial services, building of schools, increasing of hospitals, road facilities, health facilities across this LWA, that is left wing affected areas. So these are the some important steps taken up by the government to control this left wing extremism in our country, guys. So it is very important, and every year from internal security you can expect 4 questions. So one question will be there from this Naxalism, guys. You have to know that clearly, and you have to remember all these programs or measures came up by the government. And again you have to think like what are the other measures can be suggested to government so that we can eliminate this problem completely in our government. And in 2024 mains in ethics there was a case study regarding this Naxalism also. Okay, you may get case studies and also you may get direct question from this topic. You have to be prepared, guys. Okay. And see this article, 3 arrested under Operation Chakra 5. So this article is talking about one important operations. So you can get directly prelims based question here. Like recently Operation Chakra 5 is seen in news. Which of the following organizations came up with this operation? Okay, it is nothing but CBI. What is full form of CBI? Central Bureau of Investigation. Okay, is it a constitutional body or statutory body? Can anyone tell me? Online students, please do comment. Statutory body or constitutional body? Is there any article talks about the CBI in India? No, it is not at all a constitutional body. Okay, so here the keywords are, the first one is CBI, second one is Operation Chakra 5. So these two are keywords. So from this Operation Chakra you can expect a prelims based question, and even from the CBI also you can expect a prelims based question. So this CBI you will be studying in your polity, guys, which comes under GS paper 2. From GS paper 2 in polity you will be studying about this topic of CBI. If you read your Lakshmikant or if you read our institute material, you can get detailed insights regarding what is the CBI, when it was formed, what are the aims and objectives of the CBI, and who are eligible, so how they will be entering into this, what is the tenure. So everything that you have to see, guys, very important from prelims. And as I said, you have to know about what is this Operation Chakra. So you may get prelims based question, that is very clear. But even in your mains also you can use this article. Where can you use this article in your mains? And how can you use this? Any idea, guys? How can you use this article? Online students, tell me. Comment in the comment box. So this Operation Chakra is related to cyber crimes, guys. So is there any chance of getting question regarding cyber crimes in your mains? Yes, especially in your GS paper 3, and in your governance also you can get this question like cyber crimes are increasing in India. What might be the reasons and what measures can be taken, or like what are steps taken by the government? So if you are writing that kind of question related to measures, can you add this point? Recently CBI launched this Operation Chakra 5 to combat cyber crimes. Yes. So in that way, even whatever the operations, what are the examples that you are getting in news, try to use it wisely, guys. So that will fetch you the marks. So whenever you are writing answer regarding cyber crimes, you have to for sure include this Operation Chakra 5 of CBI. Very important. Okay. Now let us see what is this Operation Chakra. So CBI launched this Operation Chakra 5 against transnational organized crime or digital arrest. So you may also get one more question. Operation Chakra is seen in news. It is related to cyber crimes. Okay. And it was launched to fight against transnational organized cyber enabled financial crimes in India. It involves multi-pronged strategy. They are focusing on identifying and dismantling this infrastructure which is enabling for this cyber crimes. Okay, and actually it also marks milestone in CBI's evolving cybercrime strategy. because of increasing of cyber crimes in India, we are also updating our mechanisms to control these cyber crimes. Yes or no? So for that, it is one example that CBI also updated its mechanism, and it is one of the milestone in CBI's history to fight against cyber crimes in India, guys. Okay, let us see the next article. See the title. Defense Minister calls for reformed multilateralism, upholding global order. Okay, so what is the keyword here, guys? Tell me, all students in the comment box. What is the keyword? First one is multilateralism. What is multilateralism? What does it mean? Come on, tell me. What does it mean? All students, what is multilateralism? Multi means many. Lateralism? So have you heard about this WHO, WTO, United Nations? What is it? They are groupings of many countries. Multilateralism is nothing but three or more countries, they are forming a group and they are working with the same objective. Then that kind of cooperation between the countries is called as multilateralism. Okay, so who gave this statement? Our defense minister calls for reformed multilateralism, right? So why our defense minister is saying that thing now? What might be the reason? If something happened, then only we'll make that kind of statements, right? So what led to giving this statement by this defense minister? Just guesswork. Just guess, guys. Online students. So actually, our defense minister is attending one conference of this UNTCC. Guys. You have to make a note. UNTCC. So our defense ministry is attending one conference, that is UNTCC. What is the full form? UN is for United Nations, T for troop, C for contributing countries. So this is an organization. It is related to troops contributing countries. So what are these troops? Troops are nothing but the group of people. So do you know this peacekeeping forces? I've heard about this peacekeeping forces. So India is also contributing troops for peacekeeping. So especially across the world, so we are having disasters, we are having wars. In some countries there is no political stability, financial stability. So what happens if we are not maintaining all those things? That will lead to law and order problems. So we can't maintain the peace. So actually countries, they will come forward to contribute their peacekeeping forces, and India is providing largest peacekeeping forces in the world. Okay, so the countries which are providing these troops, especially peacekeeping forces, they form one organization called as UNTCC, United Nations Troop Contributing Countries. So as of now, around 32 countries are providing troops across the world. So in this meeting, our defense minister, he attended that meeting and he said that we have to reform our multilateralism. Why? Because nowadays, what are the problems we have? For example, recently we experienced COVID-19 pandemic, right? And also Russia-Ukraine war is going on, Israel-Gaza issue is going on, and in some countries there is famines are going on, in some countries droughts are going on, in some countries disasters are going on, there is no stability in some countries. So because of all these problems, if something is happening in one country, it will be having impact on another country or not. So what is happening now in US? US imposed tariffs on 56 different countries. So because of this, is it affecting this global economy or not? Yes. So here, to minimize that kind of impacts, we need to have multilateral organizations. For example, regarding this COVID-19 pandemic, which is the organization responsible for giving off alerts to different countries if there is any pandemic, WHO. At that time, WHO was failed. Yes or no? And now we have WTO, which talks about World Trade Organization. Yes. So what it has to do? It ensure free and fair trade. But what is the work it is doing? Is it controlling these US tariffs? No. That means this organization also had been failed, right? And we have United Nations Security Council, UNSC, right? So what is its work? To establish peace and security for the countries. Is it essentially working? Is it working correctly? So if it is working, it might have stopped this Russia-Ukraine war for long ago. But even today also it is going on. That means here our minister is saying that multilateral organizations are failing. They are not functioning to achieve their aims and objectives now. So because of this, our defense minister is saying that we have to reform these multilateral organizations. Then only we can ensure global order. Clear? And this topic is very important from your international relations, which comes under GS paper 2, guys. Now let us see this article very clearly. Okay, our Indian Union Defense Minister addressed inaugural sessions of Chief Conclave for United Nations troop contributing countries in Delhi. And this event hosted by India for the first time. And in this event, around 32 UNTCC nations, United Nations Troop Contribution Nations, heads were attending this. And some of important countries are Algeria, Armenia, Australia, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Brazil, Burundi, Cambodia, Egypt, Ethiopia, Fiji, France, Ghana, Italy, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, Madagascar, Malaysia, Mongolia, Morocco, Nepal, Nigeria, Poland, Rwanda, Sri Lanka, Senegal, Tanzania, Thailand, Uganda, Uruguay and Vietnam. So from these countries now the heads are going to meet in this Delhi, guys. And actually this conclave is focused on operational challenges in United Nations peacekeeping forces. Actually all these countries, they are contributing their people for maintaining of this peacekeeping forces. And actually these peacekeeping forces are facing lots of threats in different countries. Like there is no proper interoperability between them, and even there is no proper decision making in these peacekeeping forces, and even there is no integration of technology, and there is no training for these peacekeeping forces to enhance their capabilities. So to address all these problems, they came up with this conclave, and for the first time India hosted this conclave, guys. Okay, and in his speech, our defense minister, he said that we need reforms for this multilateralism. Then only we can uphold rules-based global order. Clear? So what is this multilateralism? It refers to diplomatic or political process where three or more parties, usually countries, they work together on issues of common interest. That means countries, they will come together and they'll form a grouping and they will work on a common interest with common aims and objectives. Then that groupings are called as multilateral organizations. For example, we have WTO, we have WHO, we have United Nations, we have United Nations Security Council, like that. Okay? Yeah, so what are the reasons behind the call? So why our defense minister made this statement? He had his own reasons. So first one is evolving global threats and interconnectivity. Especially nowadays, hybrid warfare is going on. Terrorism is expanding. Not only issue of terrorism is there in India and Pakistan, but even different countries across the world. I said about the sub-Saharan Africa, Sahel region is like terror hotspots, right? So here, majorly we have this kind of global problems like terrorism, and even pandemics will not affect only one country because of globalization. We are going to have this threats like pandemic, misinformation. So we require adaptability, we require innovation, and we require proper coordination between the stakeholders. That is the first reason he cited. And second one is violations and undermining of rules-based order. So our defense minister also said that countries are not following this rules-based order, especially they are violating international rules. Okay, for example, China's increased activities or increased expansionist policy in this South China Sea region, and even Russia-Ukraine war is going on. Israel-Gaza issue is going on, and even unilateral military interventions are happening, and even US is crossing its limit by increasing tariffs on different countries. So here there is violations across the country. So because of this, we need to reform our multilateral organizations. And the next reason here, he said that without reforms, United Nations will have a risk of losing its credibility. And especially now what is happening, there is evolution, or like nowadays one important buzzword that we can see is Global South. Global South is the grouping of developing and as well as least developed countries in the world. So why this kind of organizations are coming up? Because whatever the organizations that are there, they lost their credibility. So because of this, they are coming up with their own kind of things. That's the thing he mainly said. And next one here is our India, our country has its own philosophy. For example, if you take Mahatma Gandhi, so Mahatma Gandhi ideas, what he tell here is, if we have to enhance any mission, if we want to launch any mission successfully, we need to have the cooperation. Without cooperation, we cannot see the success. So because of that only, if you go to modern history, so before Gandhian phase and after Gandhi's entry, there is a very rapid and drastic change in this Indian freedom struggle. So before Gandhi's entry, there were no mass movements. So people didn't actively participate. But after entry of this Gandhi only, what are the movements we see? Like non-violent movement or civil disobedience movement. There are like very big mass movements. So you always believe that with the cooperation of the people, with the coordination between the people, then only we can bring that success. So that is a one more ideology which had been proposed by our defense minister, guys. Clear? And think about this multilateralism, and come on, you have to come up with your own perspectives like, yes, do we need multilateral organizations, or let us have bilateral, or let us have unilateral organizations to combat our problems? Think in that way, guys. Okay, after this class. See this article, microplastics pollution threatens Goa's estuarine fisheries, human consumers. So what is this article talking about? First keyword. What is the first keyword, guys? Tell me, online students, in the comment box. First one is microplastic pollution. Second one is estuary. Have you heard about this word estuary delta? Estuary delta, right? Okay, so first keyword is estuary. Second keyword is microplastics. Micro means small. Okay, so what are the plastics that we are doing, but that we are using? Normal in our homes, you'll use plastic utensils, plastic boxes to store the things, plastic mugs, plastic jugs, even plastic bottles in our fridge, even containers, whatever we are using, everything will be like mostly plastic. And even carry bags, everything, wherever you go, plastic is not leaving us, right? So you are cohabiting. And even in our blood also, we are carrying plastics. So you can understand how much contact, how much affection that we are showing towards this plastic, right? Okay. So first let us see this concept estuary. Normally in your geography, you'll come across this keywords like estuary, delta, like that. So there is a small difference between estuary and delta. Do you know that? What is difference between this estuary and delta? Online students, comment. Estuary and delta. Any idea? River is? So this is peninsular India, right? So in this peninsular India, we have two types of rivers. What are they? West flowing rivers. We have east flowing rivers. Yes. So whenever rivers are flowing, what they'll do? They will carry sediments. Yes or no? Rivers is nothing but the movement of water. So whenever water is moving, they will have the capability of whatever the sediments they are coming in their way, they will be taking away, and they will try to deposit at this mouth. Yes or no? So they will deposit at this mouth of river and sea. So wherever river it is meeting with the sea, there if they are sedimenting the sediments, then that will form this. What are they? Delta. Okay. So which rivers will form this delta? This is Bay of Bengal, right? So rivers which are flowing towards east, and if they are joining this Bay of Bengal, they are called as east flowing rivers. So this is east, this is west, right? Directions, you know this, north, south, east, west. So this east flowing rivers, they carry lots of sediments and they will deposit at the mouth. then they will form these deltas. Clear? But what happens in this west flowing rivers is, so this area will be having very less sediments, very less sediments, and actually the rivers will flow in normally Rift Valley regions. So because of this, there is no sedimentation of sediments. Directly water will join. So directly this river will come and join this sea without forming any delta. So this region is called as estuary. Estuaries are seen in west flowing rivers, guys. So whenever rivers are flowing in this westwards, whenever they are joining which sea here? Arabian Sea, they will not deposit any sediments at this mouth of river, and that region is called as estuary. I'll show you a difference by showing an image. Can you see this image, guys? Okay, so this is river. Whenever it is flowing, it is sedimenting this sediments at the mouth of river and sea. This is called as delta. Normally it is seen in this east flowing rivers. Okay, so here can you see any deposits here? So directly this river is coming and river is joining the sea. There is no sediments, and this is called as estuary. It is seen in this west flowing rivers, guys. So this is the thing that you have to remember. What is the major difference between delta and estuary? Delta is nothing but the sediments will be sedimented by this river. If there are no sediments, then that is called as estuary. It is in east flowing rivers, it is in west flowing rivers. Clear? Okay, now let us see exactly what is this article talking about. So before that, you have to know what is microplastics. Okay, microplastics are nothing but the small pieces of plastics. Usually they are smaller than 5 mm. You have to remember this number. Plastics which are less than this 5 mm, then they are called as microplastics. And they are persistent, they are mobile, and they are very difficult to remove from the nature. Yes or no? If you see like plastic cover or any biscuit packet cover, you can easily pick it up and you can remove. Can you remove this very small size plastics? Even the people who are having sight like me, even they can't see that. Even we can't see that. How can we remove that? Yes or no? Nowadays the important problem here is lack of vision. There will be no proper vision in this people because of extensive use of mobiles, use of laptops, continuous focusing, and continuously we are active at least 10 hours in the social media platform. So because of that, we are having this vision problems, right? Okay, so actually microplastics are nothing but they are very small plastics and they are persistent in nature. The big problem with this microplastic is it is very difficult to remove from our nature, guys. And here in this microplastic we have two types of microplastics. First one is primary microplastics, second one is secondary microplastics. So primary are nothing but we are designing that particles at that size for commercial use, especially in the cosmetics. Especially in cosmetics, we'll use this microplastics and even this microfibers also, and even in the clothing and as well as textiles also we are using this microplastics, especially to do business. We are doing that. And second one is we are throwing plastics here and there. So because of heat, because of rainfall, because of weather conditions, that plastic will be disintegrated into small size. That kind of plastic is secondary plastics. Okay. So primary are nothing but we intentionally creating that much small size of plastic for commercial use. Secondary is we are throwing it away because of heat, because of rain, because of climate, it is itself disintegrating into small size. They are called as secondary. Okay. Have you understood what is the difference between primary and secondary? Yes? Okay, secondary microplastics are the result because of breakdown of larger plastic items like water bottles, plastic covers, when they come into contact with this environmental factors. And what are the impacts of microplastics? Do we have any impact of this microplastics? The first one is, once it is entering into environment, this microplastic, they will not biodegradable. They are already very small size. Further smalling or further disintegration won't happen. So because of this, they can be ingested by marine organisms. That will lead to bioaccumulation and biomagnification. And not only that, they can also carry toxic chemicals, pollutants that will also have impact on these organisms and entire ecosystem mix. So if you come to this article, it is saying that recently one study had been done, and in this study they identified that around 4,871 polluting particles are there in this estuary. In this, around 3,369 particles were plastic polymers of 19 types. So that is nothing but they are indirectly saying that there is presence of microplastics, and that is an important source of contamination of sea floor compared to that of open waters. And because of this, what is happening? That will also continuing in this food chain, guys. So study also indicated that fish had been affected with this microplastic, and especially there is disrupted gene expression in the fishes, and also oxidative stress is increasing in these fishes, and reproductive impairment is happening in the fishes, and also reduced growth. Okay, so we are throwing plastic in the waters especially, so there is increased microplastic concentration in this water. So what happened in this? Because of this, this microplastic is entering into fishes, that is leading to change of genes in fishes. Because of that change of genes, there is increased stress in the fishes, and they are not growing to the size. And even what is happening? Reproductive impairment. Whenever there is no proper reproduction, can they reproduce more? If they are not reproducing more, then what about this livelihood of these people who depend on this fishing in that area? That livelihood will be also affected, right? And not only it is affecting health of fishes, but even the study is saying that if humans are consuming that kind of fish, that may result in immune dysfunction, guys. Your immunity is getting defected, and not only your immunity, but even there is increased cancer risk and neurotoxicity. So think once before eating fish, and be careful that from where you are getting that fish. Okay, clear? So eating fish also, like, you are spending money to get cancer. The study is saying that. Not I am not saying that. The study is saying that if you are eating fishes which are grown in this microplastic conditions, you may get this cancer, and you may also get neurological related disorders. And next one is, the longer the bodies the fish had, the fewer particles they accumulated. Fish with habitats closer to these contaminated sediments on the seabed ingested more when they feed. Among finfish, more microplastics were found in digestive tract than in gills. Again, one more thing here saying that, so if you see this ocean relief features, we have continental shelf, continental deep, continental rise. This will be abscissal plains, right? So the fishes which are present here in this region, they will have more plastic in this, yes or no? So in this fishes, more plastic, more microplastic, and the fishes which are living far from the coast will be having less contaminated fish. That means which kind of fish that you have to eat, especially sea fishes you have to eat. Okay, so that is the thing which mainly said in this study, guys. Okay, now let us see the next article. See the title, guys, Powering Up the Australia-India Clean Energy Partnership. Actually, it is not at all a new article. In 2024 itself, India and Australia came up with this partnership. And this article is again talking about we have to power it up. We have to speed up that project, India-Australia Clean Energy Project. So why we have to focus on this clean energy? What is the reason, guys? We have a target of carbon neutrality by 2070. That means we have to decrease this carbon dioxide emissions. How can we decrease carbon dioxide emissions? We have to reduce use of fossil fuels. That means we have to divert towards renewable energy sources like solar, wind, geothermal, tidal, etc. Right? Okay, now let us see what is this. So where is this Australia located? Is that near to us or far to us? In which hemisphere this Australia is located? Southern hemisphere. Yes. Okay. So do we have good relations with this Australia, or like do we have any bad relations? We are having good relations. Okay. So, and one more question, guys, is India and Australia together are the part of any other groupings? Okay, Quad. Next, G20. AUKUS not. AUKUS is like Australia, UK and US. India is not part of AUKUS. Next, Quad we have. Are we conducting any military exercises between India and Australia? Anyone? Please tell me the names. India, Australia military exercise or army exercise or like navy exercise or air force exercise. Maitri. Please think once. Okay, Ascent. Okay, after class, please check with military exercises between India and Australia, guys. So let us see about this, what this partnership is about. So India-Australia Clean Energy Partnership is bilateral because only two countries are involved here, India and Australia. So it is a bilateral framework. It established through a joint declaration between governments of India and Australia in year 2004. And actually this partnership will build on existing comprehensive strategic partnership between the two nations. And actually why they came up with this kind of partnership is to increase leverage or to increase efficiency of clean energy projects between India and Australia. And we are focusing on especially global energy transition, and we want to diversify clean energy supply chains, and we have to enhance energy security between India and Australia. Okay, so what are the features? The first one is they want to focus on solar photovoltaic technology. For example, rooftop solar workforce development. Actually, you know that in yesterday's class we discussed about one scheme. What is that? PM Suryaghar Muft Bijli Yojana, yes. So what is the aim of government under that scheme? 1 crore households free electricity of 300 units. So if you want to achieve that, we need to have this photovoltaic cells. Do we have this critical minerals or rare earth metals to make that, semiconductors to make this photovoltaic cells? No. So for that, to achieve that target, in yesterday's class also we discussed that there is no proper technology in India. So to get that technology, India came up with this clean energy partnership with Australia to get this photovoltaic technologies. And next one is we are focusing on green hydrogen also, especially Australia will be guiding India for this green hydrogen task force, and we are also focusing on energy storage systems and as well as circular energy for this renewables. And we are also focusing on cross-cutting themes, like we are focusing on building of skilled renewable workforce now. So even though after getting technology from this Australia, if you are not having the skilled workforce, can we maintain them properly? If there is any issue, who will come and who will resolve those issues? So we have to go for having these skilled technicians also, right? So here, Australia will be also providing training for our Indian workforce regarding this renewable energy. And next one here is we are also going for mechanisms for implementations of this energy, like we are coming up with dialogues, regular dialogues, and especially industry, research, private sectors, collaboration we are coming up with. And also we are going up with specific initiatives like supply chains and as well as proposed rooftop solar training academy. So we are coming up with the academy with the help of this Australian. We are going to train around 2,000 technicians, and in this we are focusing on women and youth also, especially to support this PM Suryaghar Muft Bijli Yojana in our country, and that will lead to improved research and development in our country in this solar things. And we also focusing on encouragement of investments in this net zero industries like battery minerals and as well as green steel which will be very helpful for making of that photovoltaic cells. So in these areas we are going to focus. Okay. And what is the impact of this partnership? Especially this partnership will be very useful for protecting of our environment, yes or no? And even we can achieve our climate targets, so that it will be helpful for controlling of climate change in our future. And this one is we can also create some economic opportunities. We can create employment opportunities in this solar sector. Especially we are promoting even women in this. It is also helpful for women empowerment as well. And even it will be helpful for energy security, and as well as it will also leads to the capacity building of our country. And also we can also have geopolitical and global influence as well. So we can attract investments from different countries into India regarding this solar sector case. Okay, so this will be the impact of this partnership. So these are the very important articles that appeared in our today's in the newspaper. That's in concluding. Thank you so much guys for watching, and please do like this class and share this class. You can follow us on our Telegram channel where we are providing notes for this class, and also we are providing prelims question with answer and as well as mains question with the model answer, and also current affairs in short in Instagram. And even in our YouTube community also I am providing one question after this class. So please try to solve that question guys. Thank you so much for watching.